All right. Well, here we are again. It's episode 4 of Space is Hard, the unofficial Space Force podcast. I am your co-captain, Mr. Ruben J, and that over there is my co-captain, Mr.
Brad
Brad.
I didn't know where to come in there, but yes, 'tis I. Welcome.
Last week we caused a little bit of a storm last week with some of the words that we said about this show, and I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, I did see we had some responses on Facebook, which I did appreciate. We had some people on both sides saying that they didn't think it was that great. Others thought it was a good show, and regardless of who said what, I think it was nice to hear people's stances on it.
Absolutely. I love hearing people's feedback about the projects that I work on. So, if you have feedback, please let us know what you think about the show, the podcast, whatever. I do want to address something here off the bat, if that's okay with you.
Go for it.
So one of the comments that we had was from somebody who was, I don't want to say he was a tool, but he was kind of a D-bag about it. And basically, one of our critiques was, and it was actually I think more of a positive critique, was that the writers are at least being somewhat unbiased towards either side of the aisle, the political aisle. And I thought that was a good thing for people in general. I thought that was a great thing. They make fun of the Democrats, they make fun of President Trump, they make fun of the Republicans. It's great. I mean, they have Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and AOC knockoffs in the show. And you know what? It's funny. It's not hilarious. It's like, haha. It's not the best thing I've ever seen, but at least it's refreshing and different. Mm-hmm. Somebody whose name rhymes with Beth on Facebook thought that because I'm vocal about being, leaning towards the right politically, and I voted for President Trump. Come and get me.
Guarantee we just had some people who just shut this podcast off.
Man, you know what? It's okay because that's their right. That's their right as an American and their right as a podcast consumers. They get to choose who they want to download and listen to. But this guy said basically because I voted for Trump and I lean right, that the show, that I think the show's I purposely think the show's unfunny because they make fun of the president, which is actually the farthest thing from the truth. I'm usually like the first person who will make fun of something that the president does. I am usually the first person who can appreciate a well-written joke that goes against my religious beliefs or my political beliefs or my, overall ideology of what I believe in life. I'm usually one of the first people to accept that. Hell, I thought one of Dave Chappelle's jokes in his last stand-up special that he did about abortion, I thought that was one of the funniest things I heard in the entire thing. Well, I'm a pro-lifer, so mm-hmm. I'm somebody, I'm the first person to even make fun of myself. Brad, I think you can attest to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was gonna say you make fun of yourself all the time, but I know you can laugh at yourself. I know we both can, and that's important.
That's the beauty of what I believe and how and what I think about this country. And so anybody who thinks that we're purposely sabotaging Space Force, you need to understand that it's not what we're doing. Like I know that Brad and I are both comedy fans. I know that he has a pretty well rounded understanding of comedy. He's a big fan of The Office. You're a fan of Friends as well, aren't you?
I don't know if I should come right out and say this now, but I actually have not watched Friends.
Well, this podcast is over.
Nice knowing you. Good to see you. I've been your co-captain.
But I mean, I know you're watching Dharma and Greg right now with Moxie, and so you intake comedy, I intake comedy. I watch tons of comedy. I listen to tons of comedy from all over the spectrum. I watch Seth Meyers. I think he's funny at times. His Netflix stand-up was hilarious. Sometimes he gets way too political, and some of the stuff he says isn't funny. But I'm honest about it, and I like that. So if you think we're sabotaging Space Force, you understand that we're not. We just don't find the show very funny.
Sports face? Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. It's not, for me, it's not as much a political issue as it is just the writing. And I'm looking forward to talking about episode 4 because I feel like some of the barriers that we ran into in the first 3 episodes kind of showed some leeway in episode 4. So I am curious
Episode
to hear
4?
what you what'd you say? Episode
You,
4?
you said episode 4.
Oh, did I really?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I've been in the sun for like, I don't know, 60 hours just about.
60
Yes, the
hours today.
sun. Yeah, the sun is out 60 hours in a day. So because I'm not that coherent right now, why it's gonna be an interesting episode. Episode 4. 4. Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Let's jump into this because I will start out at the bat and say this show gave me some hope that the writers woke up and realized episodes 1, 2, and 3 just weren't that great. While they're still, they still have the same problems that I expressed last week with the story still not being progressed. There's continuity issues, in my opinion. Lisa Kudrow made her return, still in jail. Still don't know why she's in jail. And I really, really hope that they address that sooner rather than later. Episode 4 gave me hope. What about you? Tell me a little bit about what you thought, kind of before we jump into the nitty gritty of the episode.
Yes. So I am of the same mind that episode 4 gave me a feeling that Space Force could actually be a promising show, or at least a show with some promising elements. I mean, we are almost halfway through, which at first thought makes me think that it still isn't that great because we're almost halfway through and the show just still isn't terrific yet. But it is showing some signs of improvement. I thought that the writing was I thought some of the jokes popped out a little bit more. I actually almost chuckled, which was improvement from the last time where I was just sitting there like literally looking at the bar across the screen, seeing how far I was in the episode, probably 10 times.
Wow.
But yes, I thought episode 4 showed some more promise.
Good. I'm happy for us to both be kind of in that camp. I will say, again, the continuity issues or lack of resolving issues, in my opinion, is a big thing and a big trend in the show. Excuse me. So the show starts out with Erin Dad, I guess, waking up late for school, going and making herself a smoothie, and getting in a random fight with her dad. Which I think the episode before, she was on really good terms with her dad, and the episode before that, like, her and her dad did math homework together. So it's like a random turn of events for her to be like, "No, Dad, I hate you. Like, I'm not cleaning up after myself. I'm in a hurry." I don't know why she talks like that.
From the old Razzmatazz, 23 Skidoo, see?
I don't know why she's like a 1950s, like, newspaper salesman or something. But extra. I don't know what I'm doing here anymore. So it was really interesting to see that. And it was like, it just came out of nowhere. But it was at least an interesting thing to see a little bit of character development between the two. And I also felt like Erin, overall, her character, I feel like her character's developed the most out of everyone else's. We saw her, obviously she has a love interest. I still want to know what scraps means. If anyone knows what scraps mean in this particular instance, I want to know. Because I have a feeling it has something to do with like her hooking up with people. That's kind of my
scraps.
Like she's the scraps that everyone gets. I don't know.
That's a good theory. At first I was thinking like Scrappy Doo, and then I thought of Scrappy Doo in a sexual way, and then I'm just uncomfortable. So
yeah, I don't want to picture Scrappy Doo like I don't want to see a sexy Scrappy Doo costume for Halloween this year. Although I don't think Halloween's happening this year. I think Halloween's been canceled. It's like everything else.
Safe search is on.
So what were your thoughts on Erin Dad and that opening scene where she got in a fight with General, what's his name? Marcus? Matthew?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Marcus. Markathon. Yes. I'm happy you brought that up. I think there was some promising development with Erin, and I did think it was weird. Like, I kind of noticed a pattern in this show where and you touched on it briefly, where she and her dad are randomly getting into these arguments, and then by the end of the episode they're able to resolve it, and they have a heartwarming moment and then by the next episode they're fighting again. And I felt like after watching this episode, all of the promise that I felt in the jokes were kind of hampered, I guess, by the fact that I didn't really feel like there was much legitimate development between Erin and her dad. Like, I felt like it was the same cycle where they just get in a fight, resolve it. And I don't know exactly where it's going, but I will say, like, when the show started, the impression that I got from Erin was that she was kind of the popular girl with, who could get whatever guy she wanted, and you just didn't really give anybody the time of day because she was too good for everybody. And then now, especially like in the scenes where she is inviting people to parties and nobody shows up, and she's like sitting there eating 20 pizzas by herself, I have a much different, which I can definitely relate to. I have a much different impression of Erin. I think she's not as she doesn't have as much clout as she thinks she does.
Yeah, I got the opposite impression of her right away. I kind of felt like she was, especially, well, I think after she moved, I think they gave kind of the impression that she was the popular kid at her previous school. But then I think once she moved, that was when she kind of became less popular, which is weird though, because like she does, like, I picked up on this weird flirty vibe with her in episode 1 or 2, whatever episode it was, where she was, doing homework, or right before she did homework with General Nerd. And so I kind of just felt like maybe she is going to become like this popular kid, but then she sends out like this, I'm assuming, a Snapchat saying, "Hey, there's a party at my house, like come over," and no one showed up, and somehow she ordered 20 pizzas. I don't know why she ordered 20 pizzas. But yeah,
She's stupid.
She's stupid. Hey, what are you gonna do? Bada bing, bada boom. There's 20 pizzas. Hey,
good about it. I wish I could forget about it. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, but that's an interesting thing to see. Like, will she be able to become the popular kid? Is she gonna maybe transfer to a different school? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with her. Now, to be completely honest, I just finished watching the show like maybe 20 minutes before we jumped on the Zoom call, and I don't remember anything else that really happened other than somehow General Nerd ended up in was it the lunar camp or lunar camp it? What was it called?
Yeah, the lunar. I don't think it was an exhibit. I think it was just like a camp, like moon training, kind of.
Yeah. I really didn't pick up much of the detail on what was going on there. It just kind of seemed like an awkward moment for him to be able to eat potatoes. Although I will say that probably the funniest moment for me in this episode was when he was having those nightmares.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Yeah, tell me what you thought about these scenes and what kind of hope and promise they may or may not have.
Well, as you were talking, I thought about how in one of the scenes he goes on a quote real run, like outside in his spacesuit, and ends up getting super overheated and dehydrated and just passes out, and is later found by one of his other I guess I don't want to say bunkmates, but one of the other people in the camp. And it just occurred to me, it's funny that I've seen Steve Carell successfully not finish 2 runs that he's attempted. One was caused by fettuccine Alfredo, and the other was caused by potato. So I enjoyed that. But
well, at least he eats a lot of carbs.
That's true. The man does carbo load. So going back to the nightmares, I don't know, man. I thought it was kind of weird. I didn't quite understand. Okay, so like I got that he is a man who represses his emotions, and that because he's a military guy, he like just doesn't show any of it, and he internalizes everything, like he just bottles it up. So I got that that's the point they were making, but I didn't understand the reason for his like night terror screams. And I felt at first I thought it was like a flashback kind of thing, which it very well may have been, which is why they didn't show scenes from it, I guess, because I noticed they showed scenes from the good dreams but not the bad. So I don't know, what did you think?
Yeah, I honestly, the stuff that they decide to show on the show, I don't get at all. like, to be completely honest, like I feel like I'm being completely honest all the time I'm on the show, but it's just like, it's a weird thing to show that this guy has vulnerabilities without really exploring them much. Um, I felt like it was just like I just felt like it was like a way for them to set up the weird comment where they're like, "Oh, Daddy's gonna give you more cream" or whatever, with
Yeah.
like an obvious first of all, that's what she said joke. No, that's what he said joke. And like there's an obvious like super cheap sexual innuendo, which is kind of sad considering that like the image is literally him putting whipped cream on some ice cream, like on a milkshake for his like what looked like a 7-year-old daughter. So it was kind of weird for them to kind of sexualize that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just I feel like everything they do is ultimately counterproductive towards the end goal of forwarding the story.
I feel that way too. I don't. At the end of the like when the camp was over and then they all went home, the sculptor said to Nerd that he had to look within himself and face the void that was darker than space. But the problem was we didn't really see any of that. We didn't see why he was vulnerable. We didn't see like things that had happened in his past really. So it was like basically in the span of a week he had gone from being the super cut and dry general to like now somebody who's in touch with his emotions apparently, but there wasn't really a connection there. And I still have no freaking clue what's going on with the Epsilon. We still have heard nothing. And like, isn't that the point of the show? Isn't that what we started with? Like, what? I don't know.
Yeah,
What's happening?
I feel like, yeah. So there's two major plot holes here that aren't being filled in, like the Epsilon, and then what's happening with, what's her name? What's Lisa Kudrow's character's name? Marge.
Oh, I don't even. Let's see. Marge, Maggie.
Maggie. I was close. Maggie Naird. Like, okay, so let's jump into the next scene where it was Erin and Maggie talking about what's wrong with Mark, and I like how we are like on first name basis with all of these people. And
yeah, my buddy Mark.
Yeah, it just like it could have simply like all they had to do to address why she's in jail is have Erin say, "Mom, why did you have to kill so and so?" Or I really wish you didn't embezzle all this money. Or like, why did you have to tweet national secrets? Like, that's all they had to do to tell us why she's in jail. And that would have first of all would have closed the chapter on that and allowed us to be like, okay, we can move on from this unknown in the world. Like it'd be one thing if we knew why she was in jail, I think it'd make more sense. I think that would close the gap and allow us to focus on other things. But because every time that we've seen her so far, she's been in jail, except for the first episode, and they haven't addressed it, that's like constantly right here in the front of my mind.
Yeah, it was almost more frustrating that they showed her again and then didn't resolve why she was even there. It was like they just kind of, here she is, but we're going to leap over the whole reason and have a conversation with Erin that doesn't really matter in the long run. Like I think Maggie mentioned that she had joined a gang or something, but I don't know if that was a joke or if that was real, but it seemed like a weird reason for her specifically to give.
Yeah, it was weird because all of a sudden she has cornrows, and then says it's not cultural appropriation if they give it to you, and I'm like,
Well, we know this was filmed slightly before everything happening was happening.
To quote Michael Scott, nope, don't like that. I don't. Here's the thing. I don't mind it personally. Like personally, I think a lot of this cultural appropriation thing is kind of a bigger deal than it needs to be. And that's somebody who is like Mexican and has a bunch of white friends who celebrate Cinco de Mayo. And that, which isn't really a Mexican holiday, but people say, oh, it's a Mexican Independence Day. No, it's not. It's nowhere near that.
Good tacos though.
Yeah, great tacos, absolutely great tacos, which we should still get at some point.
We should.
As I eat pasta, it's hidden.
In pasta. New band name.
Hidden Pasta.
Yes.
So yeah, it was just yeah. I think the joke wasn't all that great. It was more of a cringy joke, maybe just because of the sign of the times. I don't know, man. I still like. We're 20 minutes into this, and I don't think we've said one really good thing about the show.
Okay, I will dig deep.
That's what she said.
I thought the uniform scene at the very end actually almost made me chuckle, where he's like, where Brad is trying to hide the uniforms from Nerd. I thought that was kind of funny, and he walks away, and Space Force is on his butt, like the Juicy logo or whatever. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, actually, that was. No, I think that was pretty funny. I think my favorite part of all these shows has to be what's his name? Brad. Is his name Brad?
The assistant general guy. Yeah.
Maybe
his name is Brad. Oh, yes.
Welcome, Space Force Brad. Yeah, I think he's been like the funniest part of the whole show, to be honest.
He's giving me some good laughs, and I don't. Why is is his name Scaramucci? Whoever Ben Schwartz is, where's he at?
Tony?
Yeah, Tony.
Ben Schwartz.
Why is he still there? Like, didn't he get fired, or did he talk Nerd out of getting fired and then just kind of smoothly make his way back in there?
I think he talked himself out of being fired.
Okay, cool. Because I was like, realistically, he would never be allowed. Like, I worked at the post office for like a week, and then I go back to try and get my paycheck, and it's like, oh no, you can't possibly enter this building because you're not legit, and there's no way that you can prove that you're legit, even if you worked here. So it's like, I really doubt that he would be able to get back in. Anyway, roundabout way of saying he's probably still working there, and that makes sense.
Well, let's also be clear. I think you made it like 2 days in the post office. I don't think you actually did a week, but
hey, I made it a week from my hiring date, I think.
Okay, well, that works.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even know.
I'm just glad they paid you.
Still waiting on it, but yep.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, seriously. I have to go in a couple days, and hopefully they have it.
We should have a talk off air because they owe you a lot more money now. Just wow. So yeah, you know what? Let's just get to the end of the show here. Somehow magically, the Nerds are best friends again. Granted, they both kind of went through humbling processes, so it kind of makes processes.
I believe is how they say it in the native tongue.
What? Okay. So I feel like between Mark going to space camp and Erin being like completely rejected by her friends, I think that kind of helped. Although I found it hilarious that the opening scene is her making a mess and him getting like a small mess and him getting pissed off, and the closing scene is her like in a tornado disaster zone and him being like, "Yeah, it's okay."
Yeah, because he's like enlightened now or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything enlightening to say about this week's podcast. No. I will say, are you disappointed?
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I don't really have anything either.
Okay, because last week I coined the phrase, watching Space Force is like listening to Nickelback.
Yes.
I feel like today is like watching or listening to like the good songs from Nickelback that everybody loves regardless. Because this is how you remind me, like that song plays and everyone starts singing along. So I kind of feel like that's how this episode was, where it was like, we're not really enjoying this, but this song is popular enough to where I'll sing along.
That's exactly where my mind was headed to. I thought episode 4 was like listening to Photograph by Nickelback or some, if everyone cared or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, very true. But I'm hoping this is like an indicator of an upward slope, and I guess we'll see for episode 5. But I'm hoping, man.
Yeah, well, at least we're halfway through season 1, which is encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
we're at the point now, like we're at the point of no return. So last week was like our last chance to like be like, you know what? We tried. I think what we should do is have like our national enemies watch Space Force as a way to try to get information out of them.
That's right. I forgot we said that.
Yeah, I mean, will be interesting to see. I'm optimistic. I'm ending this week's episode by saying I'm optimistic. Do you have any final thoughts?
I do not. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm optimistic as well. And I feel like we're invested in this now to the point where we have to keep going. So if you're out there listening, please continue to listen. And where can people find us, by the way? Are we still doing that, or are we far enough into this to where we don't have to?
We always do it every week. We got to do it. So head over to facebook.com/space /space. Space is Hard Podcast. Facebook.com/Space is Hard Podcast. And then we are over at Instagram, over at Space is Hard. I can never get this right.
At Space is Hard.
Space is Hard. And then of course, which by the way, we almost have 50 followers on our Instagram. So you better go and like it or follow us, whatever that is. Also, we should probably post more on this page. I need to get you the password to that. And of course, youtube.com/multimedia mouth is where you can find the video versions of this podcast. But of course, we are on Spotify. We're not on Spotify just yet. We're on Apple Podcasts. We are on Downcastre. We are on, I believe we're on iHeartRadio. Like we're almost anywhere you can find podcasts. We are on. And if we're not there yet, we're on our way to being there. So subscribe to the audio version of this as well. Brad, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I think in your words, we are out of time. So
perfect. Well, make sure to follow me over at the Ruben J.
And I am at the Hysterical Pyromaniac on Instagram.
By the way, the other day that song came on, Hysteria or Hysterical or.
Oh yeah.
And I was gonna take a picture of it and send it to you.
Oh, nice.
But I didn't because I forgot.
It's my favorite song.
As I was thinking about it, I forgot.
Gives me the feels.
Well, we are out of time. We'll be back next week with a special. It's not going to be any specialer than this episode, but it's 4th of July week. I'm super excited to celebrate our freedom, and I'm out.
We will see you guys next time,
or not, depending if we can survive the next week,
or if you guys survive.
That's a great way to end the show. Is you just doing this? Oh man, oh it's great. Oh, I'm so happy that it's over.
Yes, me too. Oh boy.
Anyway, this is I'm having fun with these podcasts. At least that's the upside of this.
That's always good. I'm having a good time as well.
Well, you don't have to lie to me.
And I owe it all to you.
All right, man. I'm gonna let you go. You're hanging out with was his name Chris?
Yeah, he's my friend. We do Bible study together. I don't think you've met him yet.
Yeah, well, have fun.
One of these nights.
We should invite him over for tacos one of these days. We'll get to know each other.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Have a good one. I'm gonna let you go.
Sounds good. You too.
Enjoy your beer.
Bye.
Thank you. Don't drink too much though.
Oh, I won't. I'm kind of tired of beer.
Don't drink and drive. You might spill your drink.
Dundies.
All right. Bye.
See ya.